sort of move all the fingers. There's our jiggle switch. Works every time. Hello, I'm Bobby Vala, and these are some of my favorite non-Action Force items that I've designed over my career. The G.I. Joe San Diego Comic-Con Missile Command Headquarters. So I was on the Marvel team, and a good friend of mine, Daryl DePriest, who was the brand manager on Star Wars and G.I. Joe at the time, he came into my office very giddy, so I knew he had something to talk about. And he said, I have a great idea I want to run by you for a Comic-Con item. Now, Comic-Con items are very coveted, and it was always fun to come up with the ideas. And he said, I want to reissue the original 1982 G.I. Joe Sears Missile Command Headquarters. And he couldn't even get it all out before I rose out of my seat in excitement, because I thought that was such a great idea. Because that 82 Sears set is so highly coveted by G.I. Joe fans, and it's made of cardboard, so it's not one of those things that really survives the test of time. They're hard to find in really good condition. So, my first question was, how do we do it? And, we started brainstorming, and I said, well, you should probably do it exactly how it was. Just do, updated cardboard backdrop, updated figures. And the more we started talking about it, the more we kind of realized we had a really great item on our hand. And I said to him, well, I only have one request. Now, I was on the Marvel team at the time, not the G.I. Joe team. I said, this item is so great, I have to work on it. So we ended up pulling some strings. He talked to, my manager at the time, and allowed me to do this amazing item in addition to my Marvel responsibilities. And it was probably one of my favorite items that I've worked on because, one, it's G.I. Joe, my favorite all-time toy line, and two, it was just, doing something as amazing as that Missile Command Headquarters. And I'm, friends with Ron Rudat, so at the time I was telling him about it, and he was the one that did the original marker drawings for that original Sears set. So now we're taking his art and sort of, updating it a little bit, making it, a little more modern. Now the cool thing is Daryl was able to go over to the archives at Hasbro and pull out an original Sears Missile Command Headquarters, which was in mint condition. And we opened it up, and all the cardboard was still unpunched, and I'm holding these unpunched cards of these pieces from this set, and I'm just in awe, because it's such a one, rare to find them unpunched like that, and two, it's so expensive, and it was wild. I'd never seen one in person. So for weeks I had these unpunched pieces of cardboard that were 30-something years old and worth thousands of dollars in my office, which was pretty wild. We had them scanned so that we can do it to scale. We did our new one, the exact scale as the original one. We just updated, some of the graphics, and then I had tons of G.I. Joe parts on my desk, just trying to find the right formulas for, Cobra Commander, the Cobra Officer, and the Cobra Trooper. So, once we had the set and we were very happy with it, we knew we had a winner. And that year at Comic-Con, I think it sold out day one. So we kind of felt, like we'd got something on our hands. So, I'm always thankful to Daryl for allowing me to be a part of that item. The Marvel Legends Infinity Gauntlet. During my time on Marvel Legends, I had the amazing opportunity of doing our one-to-one sort of prop replica role-play items. We started out with Iron Man's helmet and Captain America's shield, and I was able to do, Black Panther's helmet and Ant-Man's helmet, and metal Captain America's shield, Thor's hammer, amazing stuff in the Marvel universe. And when Infinity War was coming up, we kind of had no one was really talking about it yet, but we kind of knew well, we're going to do the Infinity Gauntlet. It's the most powerful weapon in the MCU, so they were leading up to that, and, it was all going to come together in Infinity War and Endgame, and, it was sort of really exciting. And I remember trying to figure out how I was going to do the Infinity Gauntlet. And I remember You know, back when Toys R Us was still around, they had these little $5 like claw grabbers where it had a you know, a pull handle, and it pulled a mechanical hand. And I remember thinking, like, I could start with that as a base and figure out how you could put your hand inside the gauntlet and be able to move the fingers, you know, because it's massive, you know, and it wasn't just going to be like a simple glove. So, you know, I worked with my partners over in you know, in our Hong Kong office, and we came up with this system of when you put your hand in, you grab these rings and you pulled them down, and it moved all the fingers independently. And then it was just a matter of putting in all the cool little fine details of, you know, sound effects and you know, getting all the details right. And, you know, our partners over at Marvel Disney was great with getting us the reference for that item and, you know, sound effects and that sort of thing. And then, you know, I came up with a little Easter egg where, you know, when you pushed the button on, you know, the one stone in the center, it, you know, it had the power effect, and the fingers had like a metal clinking sound when you move them. But then I wanted it to be, and I didn't know this was going to happen in the movie, but I said we should put a little Easter egg where when you make a fist, the power effect, sound effect comes on. And it turns out that, you know, in the movie, when Thanos makes a fist, he's able to, like, you know, exert all this power and, you know, shoot at people and things like that. So it was kind of cool that happened. But, you know, I remember getting the first model in and putting it on, and it was so massive, but you knew it was like on this grand scale, and this was like definitely the most powerful weapon. So it was very cool to work on something so impactful. And then you see, you know, Marvel actors and sports stars, you know, wearing the gauntlet. I remember watching a UFC fight, and one of the fighters won, and he put the gauntlet on at the end of the fight. And it was like that sort of stuff. It like transcended like toy collecting, and it was more like mainstream, this Infinity Gauntlet. And, you know, I think it was either Kevin Feige or James Gunn said it was our best item that we had ever done. I think Kevin Feige said it was our best item that we ever did on the Marvel team. So that was really cool. And then, you know, coming off our Toy of the Year win with Dancing Groot, we ended up getting nominated again for the Infinity Gauntlet. So it was really cool to, you know, have back-to-back items that got nominated for Toy of the Year. But that's an important one just because of the overall impact that it had on more than just toy collecting. It's got, you know, you can't see through it, but, you know, there it is. When you reach up, you feel rings, and you attach your fingers to them, and then you can sort of move all the fingers with those rings. You know, and then you know, it's the push button for the power effect on the gauntlet. But it was cool. The 31-inch Spider-Man figure. When I first got to Hasbro in, I think that was August of 2012, I was there as a temp first before I got hired as a full-time employee, and I was on the exclusives team. And the way that worked was, you know, myself and my boss, we handled all the exclusive items. It wasn't like the Marvel team handled their exclusive items and the Star Wars team. We handled all the exclusive items, which was great because I got to work on, you know, Star Wars and Transformers and Nerf and Marvel. So, you know, there was this sort of shift that was happening where Hasbro wanted to get into more big box stores like Costco, BJ's, that sort of thing. And they were trying to build this relationship with Costco at the time. And they had, you know, they were looking for a really cool item, you know, to give them as sort of like Costco's first item, you know, their first exclusive item. And they wanted something big and impactful, something that could fit on a big, you know, pallet PDQ. And they had seen these 30-inch, you know, sort of WWE Star Wars figures that Jax was doing at Toys R Us. And kind of the funny like game plan was, well, let's do 31 inches. So the idea was to do a 31-inch figure for Costco. And we decided that it was going to be Spider-Man, since he's, you know, the most, you know, popular character in the Marvel Universe, and kids love him. So I had the opportunity to create this figure, and I looked at what they did with the figures at Toys R Us, and they were more straight up and down, kind of like, you know, shampoo bottles. Still very good figures, but just they didn't have a lot of dynamics to them. And I said, well, if we're doing something impactful, let's make this figure like shine. Let's make him really dynamic. And I was able to, you know, use my illustration skills to design this figure and put him in this great pose, you know, that when you saw him, he was like ready for battle, and any kid would want it in his room. And, you know, there was a lot of, you know, eyes on this item. And I don't think I realized how important it was until after the fact, you know, because every day it seemed like, you know, people were coming up to me, oh, are you working on the Spider-Man? Can I see it? What does it look like? So I did my drawings, and we got it sculpted up. And then the first model we ever had made, you know, was like, I knew 31 inches was going to be big, but seeing the model for the first time was epic. And, you know, myself and my marketer, we were carrying it around, you know, the office, and people were like in awe of this giant Spider-Man figure. So then, you know, Costco loved it, and then we put it into production, and, you know, getting some test shot samples of that was really fun. The first one I got was, he had an all black body and just red gloves and boots and a head. So it was like a cool looking version of him. But we did the classic, you know, red and blue Spider-Man. And then shortly after that item, you know, came out, I had gotten hired full time. And, you know, my boss at the time, he said that was the item that got you hired. So to me, that item is so important to me in my toy career, because it really led to everything else I was able to do at Hasbro and beyond. You know, for me, it was just a cool item to work on. And it's, you know, it was kind of fun not really having the pressure of it, you know, just going in there and designing a really cool, fun, impactful figure. So, you know, that one is definitely up there for me as far as significance in my toy career. The Guardians of the Galaxy StarLord Elemental Blaster. I spent the majority of my first couple of years at Hasbro working on Spider-Man, which was great. You know, I followed up that 31-inch Spider-Man and went into the Amazing Spider-Man 2 stuff, and then rolled that into the Spider-Man animated, you know, figure line, which was awesome. I loved working on Spider-Man. But then after the success of Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, they were going to do an animated series, and they asked me if I wanted to work on Guardians of the Galaxy. I was so excited, because I loved the movie, and I thought that an animated series was going to do really well. The animated characters looked really cool, and I just loved working on kid product. You know, don't get me wrong, I love the collector stuff, but to me, the kid product is really fun. You have a lot more free range of like making it fun and doing something, thinking like a kid, how a kid would play, and it's a little more challenging. So in the you know, in the animated series, Star-Lord has his blasters, and they're elemental blasters, so he could shoot different like forms of energy, whether it be fire or electric or water or, you know, pulse bombs, that sort of thing. So I wanted to really play into that for this role play blaster. And what we ended up doing was we put a jiggle switch in it, so that when you turned it to the side, it made like a transition sound, and then it changed what elemental power you were shooting. So it starts out, you shoot fire, and then you turn it to the side, and it makes a sound, and then it's like the electric sound. Then you start shooting electric, and then you turn it again, and then it's the water one. So it was just really fun to do that. And we tested it with kids, and they loved like turning it and hearing the new sound. And even to this day, it's fun to just kind of play with it. But you know, I got one for my son, and you know, it's cool to like see him use it too. So that one's fun because, you know, it's a pure kid product, and it had such a cool like playability to it. So, you know, everything in that Guardians animated line was really, really fun to do, but that Star-Lord blaster was one that like really played up the fun factor. So that's why I love that item. So here's our little Star-Lord blaster. So then now you switch over, now it's electricity. And then now it's water. Ooh, fire. Yeah, this was a fun one. But there's our jiggle switch. Works every time. The Marvel Legends 14-inch Hulk figure. During the time when I first started on Legends, and I was doing the one-to-one role play prop replica stuff, there was also this initiative to start introducing other items in the Legends, sort of umbrella. It wasn't just the 6-inch figures anymore. And they, the initiative there was to try to, they saw what the 12-inch premium collector market was doing, and Hasbro thought that they wanted kind of a piece of that. So they figured, well, let's do our own premium 12-inch line. And, I had the great opportunity to work on that, which I was incredibly grateful for, because who wouldn't want to do like 12-inch, figures? But we weren't going to do the whole Hot Toys route with this, with all soft goods and that high $200-300 price point. We were going to go something a little lower. So we're trying to figure out what the best way to do these 12-inch figures. And, the first ones we offered were Captain America, Iron Man, and Spider-Man, obviously the big three. And those figures were great. They were so cool. And then it was kind of like, well, what's next? And, I got to do 2 of my favorite Marvel characters in Thor and Hulk. Now, we knew that Hulk wasn't going to be 12 inches like the rest of them. He had to kind of almost be in scale. So we ended up going, I think he comes out to around 14.5 inches, but we wanted to make him huge. And the cool thing about this 12-inch line was I had free reign to design these characters as I wanted to. Marvel allowed us to not really follow any specific costume or anything like that. So I was able to put a lot of my own design elements and ideas into what these characters looked like. Now, Hulk is very straightforward, green, pants, angry. But one of my all-time favorite comic book artists is Dale Keown, and Dale Keown's run on Hulk was amazing. The way he made Hulk look was really cool. So I wanted to follow, the way he did Hulk to make this figure sort of look that way. And, I'd always kept my Marvel characters pretty grounded. So, I looked as like, well, I didn't want him with purple pants. I thought the purple pants were kind of silly and dated. So I gave him jeans, and even like little things like when he becomes Hulk, if they're gonna rip and stuff like that, he would have popped the top button on his pants. So on the figure, the top button is popped on the top of his pants. So little things like that I was able to do in this line, add a lot of detail. And we ended up doing several heads for this one. I did a straight sort of Dale Keown looking, modern head. Then we did a classic sort of Buscema head with the shaggy hair, and then one head that actually I had a sample of. I couldn't remember if it tooled or not, but we'd got a sample done of it. Was sort of the Kirby flat top Hulk head, and my idea was to one day do like a gray Hulk, and then we could do red Hulk and stuff like that. But when I got those first samples and saw how big this thing was, it was like holding a small child. It was kind of crazy. And then the weight of him, it was a very cool figure, just because of not just the detail, but just the immense size and weight of him. So that was a really, really fun one to do. And now looking back at that 12-inch line, which didn't really do too well at the time, is sort of this almost like cult classic line, and a lot of people are trying to get that line again, because they're looking back and saying, well, those are really cool figures, and the Hulk is kind of like the standout one from that line. The UFC Ultimate Series by Jazzwares. I went to go work for Jazzwares in 2019 for a short period of time, and I was excited because it was down in Florida and nice weather, and it seemed like a really cool place to work. And when I got there, they kind of let me know that I would be working on the Fortnite line, being the manager on the Fortnite line, which was very cool. But then I remember my first day on the job, I was walking around with my boss, and we ran into this one brand manager, and he said, we introduced ourselves, and he said, "Are you a UFC fan?" I said, "Yeah," like I'm a huge UFC fan. So it's just like weird that out of nowhere he would just ask me a question. He said, "Do you want to go to a UFC event this weekend?" I said, "Okay, sure, nice to meet you, but yeah, okay, who wouldn't want to go to a UFC event?" And he said, "We just got the UFC license, and we have tickets," and it was in, it was only like 15 minutes away at the arena in town. And I said, "Sure." I said, "I've never been to a live UFC event." So it was very cool that day one I'm getting offered, tickets to go see a UFC event. And once we kind of finished that conversation, the brand manager went his way. I grabbed my boss and I said, I'm working on that UFC line. And he just said, sure, if you want it, it's yours. Because again, it's like being such a huge UFC fan for years, I would love to do a figure line. And, you know, Jax had done one years prior. Now, you know, Jazzwares had the opportunity to do something new and different. And I was like, this is great. So I can, you know, put in some of my favorite fighters, Conor McGregor, Donald Cerrone. But I knew like I had free reign to kind of, you know, do anything I could. And that old Jax UFC line, they put a ton of articulation in, because it's like you want to get these guys in those poses, you know, and into those submissions and make it very authentic. But then I wanted to do like, I really wanted to push the envelope on other things. And I said, well, let's give them, you know, like soft goods, you know, stretch shorts, because, you know, it's like when you're a UFC fighter, really the only thing you're wearing is shorts. And some guys wear like spandex shorts, some guys wear like Muay Thai shorts. So I really wanted to play that up with each character. So for instance, like Conor McGregor, he has a tighter form-fitting spandex short, whereas Donald Cerrone had like Muay Thai shorts. And we were able to do different versions of those soft good shorts. And, you know, it was just fun. It was really, really fun to do. And, you know, getting like all the assets from the UFC licensor and stuff like that was just great. And I was like, you know, I couldn't have been happier, you know, sitting there working on UFC stuff. Unfortunately, I left Jazzwares before I got to see the line completed. And there were some things that they had changed after I had left that, you know, I would have not done. But at the end of the day, it was cool. You know, the line was cool. And I was able to just finally complete my collection of getting every one from that series signed by the actual fighter. So, you know, it's meaningful to me to do that line for so many reasons, and I'm glad I was able to work on it. The Guardians of the Galaxy Dancing Groot. So while I was part of the Marvel team at Hasbro, you know, once a year we would do sort of these off-sites where the representatives from Marvel and Disney would either come to Rhode Island, and we would do like an offsite where we would brainstorm and talk about trends and come up with ideas of, you know, that we could put into, you know, the line and things like that. It was a nice collaborative process. This particular time we had gone out to Los Angeles to do our offsite there. And, you know, we knew that Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was gonna start filming, and what were we gonna lean into? Because with Guardians 1, we really leaned into, you know, Rocket Raccoon, but it turned out that Groot was like kind of the star. Now, at the end, he, you know, he's this twig, and then in the second one, he was gonna kind of be this baby. So the new idea was, all right, well, what can we do for Guardians? What can we really do to push the envelope and get, you know, kids excited about the Guardians line? And I remember, you know, we had this big white pad, and we were just coming up brainstorming ideas. And I remember, and I could still see it clear as day, the sketch that I made of a dancing Groot. And I said music was such a big part of Guardians 1. It's James Gunn loves music in his movies, so of course Guardians 2 was going to have a lot of music and dancing sequences. So I said it'd be really fun if like you could do a Groot that recognized music and danced, or you could plug in your MP3 player or your phone or things like that and play music through him, just like this interactive sort of stereo. And everyone loved the idea. It was so cool. And then, you know, we kind of ripped that off the paper and took that back with us, because we knew like that was going to be in the line plan. So I got to work on, you know, following up the Guardians animated line. I got to work on Guardians 2 movie line. Of course, Dancing Groot was always number one on the line plan. You know, and it was great because I got to work with so many great partners in our electronics department at Hasbro and the sound department, trying to figure out like, what can we do? How can we do these things? And, you know, making sure like that Groot recognized music when it was playing, and it wasn't just like recognized talking. So it was cool, like the technology they had with that sort of stuff. And working with our partners in China, you know, to make sure that it moved great. You know, I think I had originally sent them, there was this little, it was like a cactus in a pot, and it was just a squiggly piece of plastic, but it turned and it looked like he was dancing. And I said, let's do something like that. So we ended up doing the Groot with sort of this spine inside of him with this soft outer skin that allowed him to look like he was moving and dancing, and then, you know, messing with his eyes and his light up eyes, and putting his head on like almost like a loose ball joint, so it like bobbled around. It just ended up being a really, really cool, fun item. And then, you know, on top of that, we were able to get some of the licensed music from the movie. You know, we got the whole list of what songs we wanted to do. And the interesting thing was there was one song that we all wanted, but we couldn't get the license for, so we ended up going with option 2. And, you know, we didn't know what parts of the movie would be playing these songs. And it turns out that in the second movie, when they're sort of breaking out of I think it was some sort of jail or something, and Yondu is whistling his arrow all over the place, and him and Baby Groot and Rocket, they're going through and, you know, killing all these guys with his arrow and trying to break out of jail. And it's playing this particular song, and it was such an iconic scene, and it was in the trailers and things like that. So it ended up, that was the song that we put in Dancing Groot, and it was great because it wasn't the one we wanted, but it was, at the end of the day, it was the right choice to put in there. But I heard that song like 1,000 times before that movie came out. I almost got a little sick of it, but it was cool to go see the movie and see that song playing. Be like, that's our song. So then the cherry on top of it all was that we had found out that Dancing Groot was going to be nominated for a Toy of the Year award. And, you know, that's a big deal. They do it around, you know, Toy Fair time, and, you know, the Toy Association sort of, you know, runs it and has all the nominees, and they're all voted on. And that's like the Oscars of the toy industry. So when you get nominated, it's a really big deal. And, you know, Hasbro hadn't won one in years, I think like 10 or 15 years. And then I remember I was on vacation in Florida with my family, and, you know, my marketer texted me and he said, Dancing Groot won Toy of the Year. And I was like, no, like, I couldn't believe it. Like, Toy of the Year, like, that's awesome. You know, and it was just like, I remember like just, we were staying at my parents' house, and I was just like running around like a little kid, just like, it won Toy of the Year, like so excited, because that's literally like, Toy of the Year is like, it's like winning like the Oscar for Best Picture. Like, it's that important on that level. So to be able to have, like, you know, been part and such a big part of designing this awesome item that got recognized, it was an awesome accomplishment, like, you know, like a real team thing. And then, you know, once we got the award like in-house, I just remember just staring at it, like, just, it was just one of the coolest accomplishments ever, you know, to get, you know, that high regard in my career. And, you know, I'm very happy to have that be part of you know, my portfolio. It was a great time to work on things. You know, I get a little emotional when I think about it, because of what an impact it was on my toy career. But yeah, that's probably my most favorite item that I worked on, just because, one, it was a great item, it was a fun item, but two, because it gained that recognition in the toy industry. So yeah, so that's my Dancing Groot story. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed a trip down memory lane, looking back at some of my favorite items that I've worked on. It was a blast going over them with you, and I hope you enjoyed them as much as I did.